Impressive powers, John, impressive powers of deflection. This week, we've been asking if the UK should leave the European Convention on Human Rights to control immigration. So are we getting out of the ECHR? A total of 38% of you agreed that we should leave the ECHR. 23% said they completely agreed. 15% somewhat agreeing. So whilst a total of 32% of you disagreed about leaving the ECHR, 5% somewhat disagreed and 27% completely disagreeing. I want to ask if it's time for local areas to be given referendums on whether asylum seekers can be housed in hotels near them. Joining me now is political commentator Suzanne Evans and John Falch, the North of England Coordinator of Rejoin EU Party. Great stuff, both of you. Thank you very much. Suzanne, I will start with you. Do you think that there should be local referendums when it comes to having asylum seeker hotels?
I absolutely do, yes. I mean, it's quite interesting, isn't it? I actually think we should have more referenda on all sorts of things, to be honest. But here we have basically a failure of national government to control immigration being foisted on local communities. And understandably, if you have whole hotels, which may have hundreds of bedrooms taken over by a particular type of person in a particular locale, that is massively going to alter the whole community makeup of an area. So, yes, I absolutely think there should be local referenda. This becomes a local issue. As I say, it's a failure of national government, but it becomes a local issue, and therefore local people should surely be allowed to have a say.
John, I'll throw it your way. I am aware that I appear to have come dressed as one of your EU flags today, actually, which is rather poor timing, but there you go. John, when it comes to the local referendums idea for asylum seekers, don't tell me you'd be happy to have a referendum, but you'd want to keep having one until you got the answer you want.
I'd be quite happy for them to have referendums, but only on the basis of facts and well-established facts. And when the referendum is set out in a way that they've already explored the avenues, it can tell you exactly what's going to happen.
OK.
Now,
all right, in this case, I take your point, yes. In this particular case, then, if it was pretty straightforward, do you or do you not want a migrant hotel in your constituency? Do you think local constituents have a right to vote on that?
Absolutely, yes, but only on the basis of real facts. We don't want a repeat of the Brexit fiasco with all the lies that were told.
OK. Would you be in favour of us leaving the ECHR? John, I'll maintain.
No, absolutely not.
Right.
And I think if you look at your poll, you've got a majority in the single categories for not leaving the ECHR, 27%. And in fact, if you look at your numbers, you haven't got a majority to leave. You've got about a third each way. A third don't know, a third want to leave, and a third want to stay.
Yep, Suzanne, yeah, there are the numbers of people that can see it now. I'm just going to reiterate those numbers. So completely agree, 23%, somewhat agree, 15%, somewhat disagree, 5%. So we can do this all day. Completely disagree, 27%. Prefer not to say 7%. So it's almost as close as the actual initial referendum to begin with. Suzanne, would you leave the ECHR? Because Rishi Sunak, from where I'm sitting, basically saying, well, we want to stop the boats. We want to reduce the asylum seeker backlog to nil. And also, as well, I vow that I'm going to deport people within a few days of arriving here.
Yes.
Well, he can't do it, Suzanne, can he, if we're still in the ECHR?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? And I have to say, you know, I thought about this long and hard, and I think I'd be in favour of leaving the ECHR now. I think that's what we should do. I don't wish to reiterate the whole Brexit referendum campaign again, but we did vote to take back control, and there was a clear majority voting to take back control, and yet, of course, we haven't in so many ways. And the government, of course, has also not taken advantage of the Brexit dividend that it should have done. But I'm actually quite surprised by the GB News People's Poll. I thought that more people would be strongly in favour of leaving the ECHR, seeing as how I think it is pretty evident to most people that it has severe flaws that very often, for instance, put criminals and illegal migrants before victims and before people who have been born and bred in a particular country. So I'm quite surprised, and I think it actually is quite good for GB News that it shows a broad representative of viewers, because if you ask Conservative voters whether they think we should leave the ECHR, 68% think we should. So you obviously have a much more broader viewer support than perhaps some people like to make out.
Yes, I mean, don't want to take the gloss off this, Suzanne, because that was a wonderful little bit of PR for GB News there, but we do outsource these polls to a company, so it's a fair demographic of the entirety of Britain. So there we go. But yes, I will take any credit that we can get. John, why should I have here now a judge from Slovenia, Montenegro, wherever, now, to tell us that we shouldn't be able to deport someone who we have no idea whether or not they committed a double murder in Serbia or convicted of drug offences in Italy and Norway.
Well,
surely we can
no
just
longer can see that information because you've left the EU. You've left the system that allowed the police to know this kind of information.
But the ECHR
Brexit has taken this information away from you and made you unable to take a decent decision because you can't access it.
But why were the countries that were in the EU then not themselves able to see that about each other? It clearly wasn't working, John.
Yes, they can.
But they didn't. Italy didn't know about Norway. Norway didn't know about Italy. This particular chap was allowed to walk through at least 5 different European countries before getting on a boat in Calais. I'm not surprised they were perfectly happy to wave him off, by the way.
You get free travel. You don't get stopped at the borders. They get checked afterwards.
So the compromise, I suppose, as far as you're concerned, for us, maybe having been able to find out whether or not this guy slaughtered 2 fellow asylum seekers in Serbia would be to live under a system that would have allowed him to just walk freely through it to begin with.
So what is the difference between a Slovenian murderer, a French murderer, or a British murderer? Nothing. They're all murderers. 2 of them are been born in a different place. What's the difference?
The difference is that we don't want them in our country, and at the moment, it's much more difficult to get them out of our country once they're already here.
John, you're saying who is we?
That's why you need to change.
All right, John, you are saying who is we. Do you want a load of foreign murderers in Britain?
I don't want a load of murderers anywhere.
So we don't want
British murderers. There's far more British murderers on this island than foreign murderers. Why don't you get rid of them first?
Yeah, we are in Britain, though. We are in Britain, though.
We're not allowed to. They're British. That's a totally different... I'm sorry, that's a really silly argument.
Why? Why is it different?
Suzanne, why is it different?
If you have British nationality, where are they supposed to go? Where are we supposed to send them? That's not the issue, is it? As you very well know.
Why not?
Well, interesting stuff.
You want to turn today's when we send criminals to Australia? Is that what you're advocating? Or that doesn't sound like
we have done in the past. Remember, the UK were the ones who invented concentration camps in South Africa, where we put women and children and left them to starve and die of typhus, whilst the soldiers were feasting outside through the barbed wire fence.
And that is precisely, surely, a world we do not want to return to.
Yes, no, exactly that. I'm just going to gently nudge...
You're talking about doing something about murderers, and I see no difference between a European citizen or an African or an American or a Brit.
John,
we're all human.
Okay.
Right, impressive powers, John, impressive powers of deflection. Right, impressive powers, John, impressive powers of deflection. With respect, you do know full well that we are talking about whether or not we should have tighter securities for people coming over the channel, and it would be rather nice if we did not have potential murderers, etc., coming over.
How do you achieve that? I can tell you how you achieve that. Reopen the legal routes for people to come to the UK, assess them when they're here, instead of cutting the budget and not bothering to assess them, which is where the whole problem has come from. The government have decided to close all the routes that they can use, so guess what? They're left with just the boats.
Well,
they wouldn't risk
but John, yes, again, I'm sorry, but that's willfully not true, is it? We've had more than 100,000 Ukrainians, we've had 250,000 Hong Kongers. Suzanne, just quickly, if you were
you've allowed
John, that's enough, John. You've had quite enough.
Suzanne,
very quickly, if you had a vote about a migrant hotel in your area, where would you vote, Suzanne? If you had a vote,
if I had a vote in my area, yes, I would. We have actually one big hotel has been taken over, one of the oldest hotels in the town, and people here are very unhappy about it.
Yeah, so you would vote against. All right, John, would you vote for a migrant hotel in your area? Quickly.
Absolutely. I live in Bolton. We're one of the asylum reception centres.
You are indeed, yes, much to the annoyance of a lot of people in Bolton. But both of you, thank you very much. John Falch there, the North of England Co-Ordinator of Rejoin the EU Party.
Vote Rejoin EU. Join the EU vision.